Hey guys, it's Miss Patrick, and we are on day 6 of reading The Hero Two Doors Down, and we are going to read for 15 to 20 minutes and see how far we get today. This model is more complicated to build. We can add a fuel tank and landing gears, it won't fly, but this is the real deal. We'll have to work on this one together. It will take time and lots of patience. Are you up for that? You bet, I replied. I was used to making model planes all by myself in an afternoon. How much time do you think it will take? I asked. Most of the summer, Dad replied. Geez, that's a long time. Dad and I began to work that same night. We studied the plans and mapped out a strategy to build our plane. They used this type of aircraft during World War II. It was built for Renaissance and to carry both soldiers and light cargo. Our model will look just like the real thing, except it will be made out of balls of wood. Dad looked up at the framed cover of a Saturday Evening Post that hung on the wall over our workbench. It was dated December 4th, 1944. The cover picture showed a boy building a model plane with the headline, "All boys were expected to make model airplanes." Let's start building the basic plane by cutting out the parts printed on this large piece of wood. I'll cut out the pieces and you can sand the edges until they're smooth and the exact shape of their outline. As soon as you were born, I dreamed of this moment, Dad said. What moment? I asked. The moment when you and I would build our first model plane, Dad explained. Why was it so important? I grew up loving baseball and building model airplanes and couldn't wait to share those two favorite things with you. It's a dream come true, son. Tears came to my eyes. We quit talking and finished sanding the last pieces of wood. Dad and I worked together on the plane most Sundays. We'd spend hours cutting and sanding pieces. We'd stop briefly for lunch, then get back to work until Mom called us for dinner. Some evenings, I worked alone. A month into our summer project, the wings and tails were complete and we'd begun to work on the fuselage. The body of the plane was the most complicated because of the curves. It took 2 more weeks to finish fitting small pieces of balsa to the open rectangles that form the body of the plane. One hot afternoon, I came home from stickball and headed straight for the basement. My father was down there bent over our model airplane. Hey, Dad, I called from the staircase. Hi, Steve, he replied. I knew immediately that something was wrong. How come you didn't wait for me? Dad looked up. His eyes were red. Sorry, Steve, there was some bad news today, so I came down here as soon as I got home and started working, he replied. I stepped in closer. What happened? Babe Ruth died today of cancer, Dad said. Gee, Dad, that's terrible. His body will lie in state at the main entrance to Yankee Stadium for 2 days. I'm going over there tomorrow. Can I go with you? It's going to be very crowded with long lines. Besides, you have school, Dad paused. Did you ever get to see him play, I asked. It was a little before my time, Dad replied. The Babe was a baseball legend. Did you know he hit 714 home runs in his career? He was a real New York character. Everyone loved him, even Dodger fans. We'll remember August 16th as the day we lost one of MLB's greatest, Dad said, blowing his nose into his handkerchief. Come on, son, let's see if we can finish up this fuselage today. I know it's tedious work, but we're getting close. Sure, Dad, I agreed, climbing onto a stool next to my father. I knew he was upset, but I hoped that working on this with me would make him feel a little bit better. We worked in silence. When the fuselage was finished, we sanded the model plane and covered it with layers of tissue paper and fabric, then final thin strips of balsa wood. Before going to bed, we painted our plane chrome and finished it off with a red stripe down the middle. It was a beauty. The next Sunday, Dad took me to the field where people were showing off their model planes. We set ours on a folding table and waited for someone to notice it. Dad circled around the other tables and I manned ours. That's an L-17, isn't it, boy? An older man said as he approached our table. Sure is, I replied with pride. The finish is nice and smooth. It looked like it could fly, the man said. My dad and I still have some work to do. We don't even have landing gear, I told him. I was an Air Force pilot during the Second World War. I delivered cargo to North Africa in one of these babies. The man ran his fingers over the fuselage. You did a great job. That's because I made it with my father, I replied. That's right, the man said. Stick around. Some of the boys will be flying their models this afternoon. For such a young boy, you're taking this hobby seriously. I like that, he added. By the time Dad came back to the table, I was beaming. Dad, tons of people came by to admire our plane. I'm proud of you, son. Can we build one that flies, I asked. Sure. It wasn't as if we forgot about the Dodgers that summer. Building the model plane just gave us something to do with our hands while we listened to games on the radio. It also kept us from being too anxious when the Dodgers went from the last place to third in late August. The Dodgers left Brooklyn for a long stretch of away games. I overheard Rachel tell my mom that when Jackie was playing out of town, he wrote her long letters and sent flowers on Fridays. Mom said that her husband needed to take some romance lessons from Jackie. The two mothers laughed a long time over that one. I told my father about the conversation between Mom and Rachel. Dad reminded me that since he worked in Manhattan, he didn't need to write his wife love letters. I had to agree. My father worked long hours, but he came home every night. I counted myself lucky. On August 29th, Jackie hit for the cycle with a home run, a triple, a double, and then a single in the same game. Jackie also stole base, scored 3 runs, and knocked in 2 others. 7 wins in a row sent the Dodgers into first place. Boy, did we celebrate that night. The new school year started up after Labor Day, a new class and a new teacher. After a few tough breaks, the Dodgers ended their season in 3rd place. We were heartbroken about them missing their playoffs. I refused to cry, but it took me a whole day before I could even talk about how sad I felt. Sina and I were on our way home from school. We'd been 4th graders for a whole month. As we turned onto our block, I spotted Jackie. Hi, Steve, Jackie said as we walked towards him. Is this your friend Sina? Sure is. Nice to finally meet you, Sina, Jackie said, extending his right hand to her. Steve talks about you all the time. He talks to me about you too, Mr. Robinson. You're his hero, Sina said. I'm his friend Sina, Jackie replied, rubbing my shoulder. How's 4th grade, he asked. Pretty tough. A lot more homework, we told him. Do you see much of Miss Malakin? I pass her in the hall every day, I reply. She asked if you were still my neighbor. She told me to keep up the good work. Sina, did you have trouble with Miss Malakin last year too? Jackie asked. You bet, Sina replied. She had a right to be tough on us. From the story Steve told me, I guess you're correct. Were you okay with the Dodgers' record this season, Sina asked. My only disappointment was that we ended up in 3rd place. We could have done better. But you led the league in hits, doubles, triples, total bases, and runs scored. Plus, you were rated the best second baseman in the National League. You've got to be happy with those statistics, I reminded Jackie. Baseball's a team sport, Jackie replied. No individual player can rest on his performance alone. Our team had a chance to be first, and we blew it. What's next for you, Sina asked. Jackie rested his hands on his hips and stared down at Sina and me. One thing for sure, he said. I won't be eating as much as I did the last winter break. Sina and I cracked up. Are you and Rachel going to California to see your families? Not this year, Steve. We're staying in New York. Campy and I are going barnstorming for a month. We'll be playing with the Negro League team, the New York Cubans, but we'll be back in New York by November to work at the Harlem YMCA. Phew, I said, relieved. I thought you'd be away for months. Jackie smiled down at me. As a matter of fact, Rachel and I have decided to plant some roots here in New York. What does that mean, I asked, feeling happy and hopeful that the Robinsons would remain my neighbors. We're house hunting. It's time we bought a house with a yard so Jackie can play outside. You mean you're moving off Tilden Avenue, I asked. At some point, Jackie replied. I couldn't believe it. Jackie and I had just become friends, and now there was a chance he might move away. I was crushed, but I didn't want Jackie to see that. Sina and I said goodbye, and I went home. The next day, I was sent to the principal's office because I bloodied a classmate's nose. I hadn't been in trouble since last spring. I could tell right away that Miss Wexler was very disappointed in me. Don't talk back to me, Dad shouted. School is a place for study, not fighting of any kind. You are to be respectful to your teachers and your classmates. Do you understand me? What do I say if one of them disrespects me? Tell your teacher and let her handle the situation. And have the whole class laughing at me? No way, I said. Then be prepared to spend the entire 4th grade on punishment. No stickball, no building model airplanes, no sledding. Is that what you want? I shook my head no. I said quietly, Dad, I'm one of the shortest kids in my class. I've got to stand up for myself. Just got to, I said, sinking down to the floor in frustration. Dad pulled up a chair beside me. What's gotten into you? Your mother and I haven't had any trouble from you in a long time. Are you angry about something? I started to cry. Jackie's moving off of Tilden Avenue. I won't ever see him again, I said between sobs. Jackie was already away barnstorming, and I wouldn't see him for weeks. I couldn't imagine what it would be like when he was gone for good. Come here, son, Dad said, pulling my arm so I'd stand up. Dry up your tears. You've made a special friendship with the Robinsons. They don't have to live next door to you to continue being friends. We'll help you stay in touch. You mean I can see the Robinsons even when they move away? That's right, Dad said. Plus, we'll go to Ebbets Field when the Dodgers are in town. You can write letters to the Robinsons, and I'll bet you can even visit, Dad paused. It won't be the same as having them as neighbors, but you'll always be friends. As you get older, son, you'll make lots more friends. That's the way it works. I hope so, I said, reaching over to hug my father. Promise me you'll settle back down at school. That's your job now. You can't afford to be pulled out of class for misbehaving. And I certainly can't afford to miss work. Is that clear? Yes, Dad, I replied. I'll finish my letter to Joel now. I'm going to tell him that name-calling doesn't solve a problem. Maybe we can start being friends. A month later, I was outside playing football with some of the kids in the neighborhood when Jackie returned home from barnstorming. It was a warm, early November afternoon. My friends and I had taken over the block for our game. Jackie, I yelled as he stepped out of the cab. Jackie dropped his bags on the stoop and walked over to us. Hey, Steve, he said to me, then greeted the others. Glad you're back, I said. Me too, Jackie replied. Throw me a pass, Jackie, I pleaded. Just one, Steve, he agreed. I handed him the football, then turned to run down the street. When I'd reached a nice distance, I turned back around and skipped backward, waiting for Jackie to release the football. I lifted my arms to catch the ball, suddenly realizing that this was a ball spiraling in my direction, thrown by a professional athlete who'd played semi-pro football with the Honolulu Bears. Yikes! My heart pounded, my knees buckled, my hands began to sting, and the ball hadn't even reached them yet. Was I crazy? The ball came in so hard against my chest that it literally knocked me over. I hit the ground with a thump. The ball was still cradled between my hands and my chest. I lifted the ball high above my head and let out a roar. Chapter 8. On Sunday, December 19th, we were walloped by a snowstorm that lasted 20 hours, leaving behind almost 20 inches of snow and record cold temperatures. I watched the whole thing from the windows of our house, counting down the hours before Sina and I could go sledding. While I was dreaming of snowball fights and racing down the big hill in the park, my mother was making plans for our big Hanukkah gathering. This year, Hanukkah would begin on December 26th. The first night was a big deal. Our house would be filled with grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. I loved everything about Hanukkah except getting dressed up for dinner and being beaten in the dreidel game by my older cousins. Mom would make the potato pancakes, applesauce, and sugary donuts first thing in the morning, set out the bowl of wooden dreidels and foil-wrapped chocolate Hanukkah gelt, then place the menorah and candies in the dining room table just before company arrived. Naturally, the very thought of getting 8 gifts made me giddy. Mom pretty much knew what I wanted, but I made a list and gave it to her when I came down for breakfast. Can I go sledding today? I asked as soon as I walked into the kitchen. Please eat your breakfast and then we'll discuss plans for the day, my mother said. Okay, I replied. How about scrambled eggs with your bagel? No, thank you. My mother was standing next to the counter with a wet cloth in her right hand and our menorah in front of her. Did you sleep well, Mom asked. Yep, I replied, settling into my chair and slapping jelly on my bagel. Mom looked at me as though she had something important to say. Steve, you know that there is a war in Israel, Mom began. I nodded. The Arab-Israeli war had been a dinner table conversation for months. I didn't really understand war. How did they get started? Who was right? Who was wrong? Was the fight for freedom or land? Did children still go to school? Since I'd never experienced a war, it was strange to me. Maybe we could bring all the children in Israel to America so they'll be safe, I suggested. Mom dropped the cloth she'd been used to cleaning our menorah and walked around the kitchen counter to make a seat at the table. Steve, you're the kindest boy, she said. I can just imagine millions of Jewish and Arab children coming to America so they can get a school, be loved, and live in a safe place. Unfortunately, that is not possible, but we can help make a difference in their lives. Really? How? I asked, happy to know there was a solution. Your father and I have talked about this a lot, and we have a suggestion. Next Sunday, we'll celebrate the first night of Hanukkah. The family will come to our house, and we'll begin our holiday. Your father and I would like to make the first night of Hanukkah have a special meeting beyond a family gathering and the exchange of gifts. We want it to truly be about our Jewish faith. You know how we talk about doing a mitzvah? Sure, I said. It's doing a good deed, like when we visit the home for old people and plant flowers in their garden. That's right, Steve. On Sunday, when your father lights the first candle, he will say a special prayer asking for peace in Israel, and then tell our family of our plan to send money to help support both Arab and Jewish children in Israel, Mom said. But the children are so far away. How will we get money to them? We will send money to them through the United Nations organization called UNICEF. It helps children all around the world. Since the Arab-Israeli war began, UNICEF has been providing food and supplies to Palestinians, that's a hard word for Miss Patrick to say, who had to flee from their homes, and to Israel women and children who are caught in the middle of a war. We will ask your grandparents, aunts, uncles, and even you and your cousins to give us money to send to UNICEF. I only have $2, I said. Mom chuckled. We have another idea of how you and your cousins can contribute. You do? Yes, we want you to give up one of your Hanukkah gifts, Mom said. You're going to send toys to the kids in Israel, I asked. No, they need food and blankets more than toys. Instead of buying you 8 gifts, we'll buy you 7 smaller gifts. The money that we save will be added to money your father and I have put aside to send to Israel. Your aunts and uncles are asking your cousins to make the same small sacrifice. You and your cousins will be doing a mitzvah. I wrestled with Mom's words for a few minutes. I put my bagel down and sat back in my chair. It made sense, but I was a little disappointed. Where do children go to get away from bombs? I asked. Sometimes they hide with their families in shelters dug underground, but since bombs and gunfire can happen all day or night, they sometimes hide under their desk at school or in corners of buildings. Truth is, there is no real hiding place. Kids aren't innocent victims of war. I've been trying to picture war, I said. Where would we go if Tilden Avenue was hit by a bomb? War is hard to imagine. I pray you will never have to experience, Mom said. We're safe here. Up until this very moment, I hadn't felt connected to the Arab-Israeli war. Now I was. Mom was right. Children were innocent victims. They didn't start wars. I felt sorry they had to grow up afraid of death. Maybe doing a good deed would make some of the children feel less afraid. I get it, Mom. And that's where we're going to stop today. We will continue tomorrow. It looks like we have maybe 1 to 3 more days of reading left, and then we should be finished. I hope you're enjoying this story, and I hope you tune in again tomorrow. Bye, guys.